What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here. So before we jump into this this amazing content that we've created for you today, whether you're watching this or listening to this, I wanted to just say a couple quick words. So first off, thank you so much for watching or listening, whether you're on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. First off, thank you so much. You guys, by watching this channel, by sharing this channel, that's what makes this all possible. So number one, thank you so much for watching. Number two, if you have not done so already, please go to www.gsdmode.com. You can opt into our email list. We send out a lot of epic content. This will ensure that you don't miss any of these episodes or any of the free content that we push out. Also from the website, you can access all the content that we've ever created and that we continue to create, from our entrepreneur interviews, our real estate agent interviews, our health and fitness interviews, to our GSD knowledge rounds where I answer all the questions every single week that you guys send in, to leveling up with me, which is a episode I do every single week on the show. Also on there, you can purchase our GSD Mode apparel that we just got launched. So you go to www.gsdmode.com. You can purchase our t-shirts on there that are up for sale. And then I wanted to talk to you really quickly, if you're a real estate agent, about our 90-day mastery bootcamp. So on there, you can go to the products page. You can see our 90-day mastery bootcamp. There's a 15-minute video that explains it's an in-depth, hardcore 90-day program, 50-plus hours. It's not some pre-recorded videos that you watch. I mean, this is a live event, all done in a group setting through webinars. It's about 40 to 50 hours of content and is by far the most intense, extensive, effective, and most affordable coaching platform that exists in the industry, hands down. We have a very powerful money back guarantee with the program, so make sure you guys go check that out now. Again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure the way that we are able to continuously and always do these for free is by getting views, right? So make sure that you're watching, make sure that you're sharing, share it in your social media world, share this with anybody, this channel with anybody that you think or know may benefit from this. The more that you share it, the more views that we get will ensure that we're able to continuously do this for free, as well as continue to bring you more amazing content. So hope you enjoy the content you're about ready to listen to or watch. Have an epic day, and again, thank you so much for watching or listening. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD interview, where we interview top real estate agents, top entrepreneurs, and just top badasses that are out there dominating their space. So today, live in the studio, we have my good friend, Kelly Henderson. Kelly is a real estate agent who's been in the business only for about 3 years. You know, a very young real estate agent, which those that aren't in the real estate business, in the industry, your average real estate agent is 57 years old. So to make it and have huge success as a young agent, it's almost unheard of. Right, so a very young real estate agent who's out there kicking ass, on track, on par to do $12 million in sales this year, which again, those of our listeners that don't understand the real estate industry, that's 12 times the average production of the average real estate agent. So doing 12 times the amount of production, voted the 30, NAR's 30 under 30. So those of you that don't know what that is, National Association of Realtors, it's a big deal for any agent that's under the age of 30. Because again, it is so hard to obtain huge success in this industry. So NAR, National Association of Realtors, does a award every single year where they vote the top 30 agents under the age of 30 all over the entire nation. Right, so you got like 1.2 million realtors. I don't know how many of those are under the age of 30, but a decent sized chunk of them. So 30 under 30 winner, and just voted the Realtor of the Year. Right, so today we're honored, stoked to have my good friend Kelly on the show. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely stoked, dude. I saw that you won 30 under 30, and I was just, you know, it is a dude that won like years ago. I'm a little bit your senior here, but I think it was like 2011 that I won it, and you know I had to apply 3 different times, and those that don't understand what it is probably don't get how hard it is to obtain that award. They don't get how important it is, but it's like a big deal, right?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, pretty epic. So I saw you won it, and we've known each other for a few years. I've seen your career just take off and do some massive things. I'm like, I've got to have you on the show. So
thank you.
Yeah, stoked that you're here. So before we get into all of that, and what you're doing to create the massive success in the short period of time that you created, let's rewind the clocks, right? So you're an entrepreneur now. But let's go back to, let's just say like college. Like, did you always want to become an entrepreneur? What did you go to college for? Like, what were your plans and what made you decide to become an entrepreneur and choose real estate kind of as your product?
I think most people who are real estate agents probably didn't plan on real estate at some point in time in their life, unless they're maybe from a family of realtors. So I went to college. My degree's in psychology.
Perfect for real estate.
Yeah, so that works out. So a couple months before leaving for grad school, I kind of had a change of heart. Didn't want to have to take out student loans. So as I thought about it, I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do. And I'm a planner, so I caught pretty, I guess, depressed is the best word to say it. I was just kind of in a funk. So went down, talked to a career counselor at the University of Arizona, who unfortunately wasn't very helpful, but I went across the hall to a good friend that I had made as I was in school, and we kind of talked about what I wanted my life to look like, and all of the kind of perceived ideas about real estate led her to suggest real estate. So I thought I wanted this flexible time schedule and the ability to control my own life, all these things that we think come with, I guess, pretty much not making any money in real estate, but sure, being in real estate. So she suggested it, and on the drive home, it was like, how did I never think of that?
So were you pissed off that you just spent all that money at college?
No,
I'm
still thankful for the experience. But yes, 2-week crash course is actually what I ended up doing. So went home, interviewed my mom, who had been an agent and didn't like it. And then my brother-in-law was just finishing his first year up in San Francisco and loved it. And between what they liked and didn't like, I realized it was a pretty good fit. So I did the 12-day crash course.
Okay.
And got my license and been going ever since.
All right. So you finish college, right? So you finish your bachelor's,
Mm-hmm.
then you jump in, you do your 12-day crash course. And you said that your counselor had sold you on their perception of real estate, why it'd be a good fit, which of course, that the general public's perception, like they have no clue. You have to literally be obsessed and live, eat, breathe this industry. And it's the same for, I operate multiple businesses outside of the real estate business, and it's the same for every single one. Like, you have to be freaking obsessed. And people are like, how many hours do you work? I'm like, I don't know, from the second your eyes open to the second they close, right? So, so what was that like then? Because you go into there with some, and I don't want to say myths, but perceptions maybe of you interviewed your mom. You interviewed who did you say it was? Your cousin?
My brother-in-law.
Your brother-in-law. Okay, so you interviewed both of them. So then at that point, you came up with your own perception of what the business was going to be like. Was it what you thought it was when you got into the business, or vastly different?
Once I got into the business, I think it's kind of in line with what you're talking about, that if you're so obsessed with it, it doesn't matter. So my perception of what I wanted my life to look like was not really in line with who I am as a person. I think it was just because I was having a hard time and I thought that's what I might want my life to look like. But I'm not typically the kind of sit around, relax type of person like that. I'm more like a bull in a china cabinet. And so once I actually got into real estate and realized that's more what it's like, it seemed like a much better fit.
All right, awesome, dude. So let's talk about what your journey's been like. So you in a few years, you've only been a full-time agent for 3 years, producing full-time agent for 3 years, and you've done what most agents can never do. Right. Again, I mean, right now, this year, you'll do 12 times the amount of business that your average agent does. And a lot of these average agents, have been doing this for years and years and years and years. Right. So we were just in the studio of a good friend of mine, Russell Shaw, one of the legends of the real estate business. It took him 12 years to kind of click and finally become a producer and kind of get it, which you've done right out of the gate. So not saying that it hasn't been difficult. I don't want to, we'll kind of get into there and what some of those challenges have been. But let's kind of walk that journey. What's it been like? I mean, how have you, so day one to, now, I mean, what's it been like? What's the journey been like?
Awesome. So I like to group them as years because that kind of mentally helps me. So 2012 then was my first full-time year. I technically didn't start producing till that March. So that's kind of the lead-in. So I got my license in November, but didn't start producing till March. And I think that's the hard part that a lot of people can't mentally get over. I mean, sometimes you get lucky and you show up and everybody wants to buy or sell real estate, but I was 22. So nobody I knew was buying or selling real estate, and I didn't know what I was doing. And so it's a lot about building a foundation. And I think when you're in it and can see the long haul, it still stinks. I'm not discrediting that, but it's like, well, this is just paying my dues and this is building the foundation, and I want something to last and not something that would just crumble a couple months later. So I had my first closing that March, and really since then I've just been pretty consistent. And we'll talk about one loop in that. But so starting that March, got going right away. I've always kind of been a pedal to the metal person, and that could be, I think, another way that real estate agents fall short is this idea of like, I want to know everything I can know, and then I'll implement it. And really how we learn in this business is by doing it. And I think that's a mental hurdle that a lot of people have to get over. Fake it till you make it is a thing that I think some people love and hate to say, but it really is what you're doing. Because when someone asks you a question, like I remember one time someone saying, do you feel comfortable with horse property? And of course, definitely. I have a good, she was actually my transaction coordinator at the time, was a competitive horse racer. So when I answer that, I feel confident saying yes, because I will be able to learn from her, and without a doubt, I can sell that property. But at that very second, no. And so that's, I guess, the fake it till you make it aspect. Like, I'm going to learn it to the best of my knowledge, and then I'll be able to implement it. So that's kind of how I just took my business when we got started. So that year I did 33 transactions. About 10 of them were rentals, so half and half. And I remember thinking I'd gone to school and done three part-time jobs at the same time and made no money. And then I was in the real world also working like a dog. But then I remember thinking like, I made $60,000. Like, I'm 22 years old. This is awesome. And I didn't even, when I graduated, I was making far more than any of my friends had. And so that was a really cool feeling. So even though, by I think real estate standards and how I judge myself now against other agents, that was pennies on the dollar. But back then, that was awesome. So I think the perspective you come into it with can be helpful or hindering. So that year was just all about learning and just doing as I went and figuring out as I went along.
Yeah.
So that was 2012. 2013, how my years getting mixed up now? Yeah, okay, so 2013, I hired my executive assistant, Ashley, in June. So she was part-time with me for June through December. And that was a game changer for me. So I'd always had a transaction coordinator, which is somebody who basically runs the back end of the business when homes are in escrow, so I can go out and generate new business. So I had the transaction coordinator. She was helpful but expensive when you start to do a lot of transactions, because I'm just paying them per deal, and that's really all they're doing. Whereas with Ashley, she got licensed right away, so was able to start doing my transactions, and now I'm paying her part-time, but in addition to that, she's also able to do marketing and other things I didn't have maybe as much time for. So from a profit and loss statement, that was just a no-brainer. It was almost an even swatch. I think it was maybe like swatch, because that's a word. Swap. And so I think it added an additional like $3,000 or something to my bottom line. Piece of cake. So I had her part-time, and then that year our number of transactions dropped really low, but I had like a real life again, which was really nice. I think we did 22 sales and a couple rentals or something. So we still increased volume. It went up probably about double. So I was doing a couple million, but had a life again, so that was nice. And then that's the year that I won the Scottsdale Association of Realtors Emerging REALTOR of the Year. So that was pretty cool. And then 2014, Ashley went full-time with me, which was a total breakthrough because I got married in February of 2014. So I was gone for like a solid month. The first week I got married, Ashley closed 7 deals while I was gone. And that's when I knew I had found real talent, that I could up and leave. She'd only been full-time with me for like 7 weeks. And I left, and I came home. I didn't bring my laptop or my cell phone when we went on our honeymoon. I had no communication, and I came back, and the world hadn't burned down. Yeah. So as it turns out, you don't need me around to get real estate done. You just need Ashley. So we had a great 2014, lots of learning, lots of growth, and that's really where the failure comes in. Do you want me to talk about that now or come back to it later?
Yeah, no, let's hit it.
Okay, so I kept thinking like I was going to come home from the honeymoon and then I'd feel like rejuvenated, because usually that's what the new year does for me. I get excited about the new year, like kind of close a chapter, and starting in October, November, I'm already in the next year mentally. And 2013 December came around and I still really wasn't in it, and I think it's because mentally I kept saying like, well, I'll come back from the honeymoon. Like everything will be different and I'll come back and I'll be plugged in. And I came back and I was excited to be back, but like just not as jazzed up as I had been before. So I came back. We had a fine second quarter. And then third quarter, I traveled for work, which was cool. I did lots of speaking engagements and lots of classes and went to different NAR activities and Keller Williams activities and all these different things, which is good. So that's working on the business, but I really wasn't working in the business at all. So I came home in September from all this traveling and looked at our books and thought I have a real problem on my hands because I had been doing no lead generation, and we really don't do a lot of marketing right now. So if I'm not lead generating, there's nothing new coming. And I remember thinking, this will be interesting, but I still hadn't clicked yet. Like, it was like, okay, I need to get back to work and la, la, la. And I didn't really plug back in. And then October came, and we had literally nothing that was supposed to close that month. And I had not really anything coming up. And I looked at my bank account and thought, oh no. So that's when it clicked, because I basically, I paid Ashley out of my husband and my savings account for about 3 months and didn't take a salary and thought, like,
this sucks.
Yeah, this sucks. And this is why real estate is a business and not when people just get in and think I'm going to do like my family, my friends deals. And you can do that. And for a lot of people, that is success. But for me, and for the fact I had hired someone, that is not success and a real problem. But the gem that came of it is A, I learned not how to do that again. But B, it really gave me the opportunity to launch us into this year. So I had nothing to do besides lead generate. So October through December, pretty much straight, I was just on the phones, just reaching back out to past clients, my sphere, and we do a lot of work with for sale by owners. And so just kind of hitting all those areas. And then January came and it all exploded. Yep. It's been an awesome 2015. I mean, we've done just as much as we did all of last year so far, which is pretty cool. And it's just different. So I guess the pitfalls are really what launched us forward, or did my situation. So 2015 hit, yay, we're here, way better. I just hired 2 buyer's agents on Friday, so the team is growing, and it'll be nice to not be the only person producing anymore, because I think that's a lot of pressure, but I also think it'll give us good room to grow, which is nice. And then we're also hiring a full-time transaction coordinator. So we have a lot of the back-end support as well as the front-end work. Yeah,
I dig it. Business is all about growth, right? Well, life is all about growth. And most people don't understand, whether it's in real estate or any form of entrepreneurship, is, okay, yeah, you can be an entrepreneur, but if you're by yourself, you're an entrepreneur with a job, right? So you don't have a business until you can go on that honeymoon and it's business as usual, right? So my friend Brad Martin, who says the quickest way to get smart is run out of time or run out of money, right? So and that's kind of what happened, dude. And I've been there too. Like I've not paid attention to the key indicators. All of a sudden, you realize, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Yep. Right? And you got to sink into life savings or what. You got to figure it out. And us as entrepreneurs, I mean, that's just what we do. Is you become brilliant problem solvers. So okay, let's take a step back though. So 33 deals your first year. Right, which is insane, right? So you got to get it. I mean, you got to understand that, and not necessarily you get it and understand this, but I'm talking to our listener base. 90% of real estate agents fail in the first 3 years. So if you get out of real estate school and there's 30 people that you went to class with, there's only 3 of you left in 3 years. Mm-hmm. So not only did you make it, but you didn't just survive, like you kicked some serious ass. And of course you had, some setbacks in there, but those setbacks become our biggest growth moments and the things that define us. How in the hell? So, cause I got in the business, I can relate, right? I was 23 years old, like I could barely shave, like nobody's taking me seriously. And like you said, like usually your business is kind of in your sphere, the people that know you, especially in the beginning, until you build that pipe and know how to lead generate. So how do you do 30, as a 22-year-old kid, because that's really what you are at 22 years old, really. How do you go out there and do 33 deals? Like, what did you do to get in front of that many people?
I guess it's what did I not do? So I did a lot of stuff, which in retrospect, I should have probably been a bit more focused on certain areas. But I started off just before I got my license. There was a class that came to town that I had an interest in. It's called Bold, and essentially it's gets people out of their bad habits in real estate, because most people who go to it already have their license, but I didn't have a license. So I showed up, I got my license while I was in the class, and one of their main focuses is the fact that it's a numbers game. So how many people are you talking to each week? And the goal of the class is to talk to 100 people a week. And so I did it. Like, I didn't know any other frame of reference. Most agents think that's really hard, or like, how'd you talk to that many people? But I didn't know, because I haven't been around. So I did any and everything. I remember my first time I hit that 100 number was during Halloween. And I thought, well, how am I going to like talk to this many people? So I set up this, and it's such a kid thing to do too. I set up this little stand for kids to come get candy at. And so my mom was in charge of, because I lived with my mom at the time, my mom was in charge of manning the candy bowl. And then I was in charge of being there with my business cards. And the idea was the kids would come up to get candy and I would go talk to the parents and let them know. But nobody was in our neighborhood trick-or-treating, and I figured this is going to be a real problem because I want to get to my 100 in this night. So I started reverse trick-or-treating. I stapled on my cards to little candies, and I started going door-to-door and knocking because everyone answers their door on Halloween. And so, like, stuff like that, like I had zero fear, which is handy in the beginning. We get those fears as we grow and get into real estate and realize that like that's not a normal thing to do, but I did it and I didn't care. And so stuff like that is just that, I guess, not caring was really helpful. Everybody and their brother that I knew I was in real estate. I went home for homecoming, so I'd had my license. Gosh, I'd only been producing for like 6 months. So I went to U of A for homecoming, and our sorority had this event thing where they were introducing all the alum. So I got up, told them when I'd graduated and all this stuff, and then I said, and I'm a real estate agent. And everyone there laughed and said, really, we had no idea. And there's like 200 people there. So the fact that 200 people that I hadn't seen in almost I guess it would have been a year and a half then, knew that I was in real estate, like, okay, mission accomplished. I'd actually done what I meant to do, which is to make sure everybody knows. I mean, they say that it takes an average of 7 times hearing what you do before they remember. And I mean, I think if your listeners think about it and they can think of like even some of their closest friends, they might not really know what they do because we talk about work so vaguely. Oh, it's going well. Oh, I had a hard time. And we talk about maybe our bosses or the people we're around, but we don't talk about what we do as much. And so that was my goal. Just tell everybody that I knew I was in real estate and to constantly remind them. So I was just always asking, who do you know is looking to buy or sell? And if you do that enough times, they will come.
Yeah, I mean, it's so simplistic when we really break it down. It's get people to know you, like you, trust you, be aware of what you do for a living. As long as you stay in touch with them, your business grows, right? So how does that translate to, so that's 2012, how does that translate to 2015? I mean, are you doing a lot of the same tactics that you did back then to grow just on a bigger level? Because maybe now you have some of the help and know what to eliminate. I mean, what are you doing right now that's just crushing it?
So the majority of our business really comes from 3 main facets. The first that most people will probably assume is our sphere of influence. So people that I know in one way, shape, or form over time that we either drip on via email, that I call because we regularly call our past clients and kind of our key business players. And then we have like a client appreciation party. So just different ways to touch our people. So we get a lot of business from that. Then the second way, which most people are really surprised by, which is fascinating to me because it's how I started the business, is that they're agent referrals. About 40% of our business every year comes from referrals of other agents.
And that's those speaking gigs and other things that you do that.
Yeah, it is. But actually, and I should have mentioned this earlier, that was my first year in the business too. So I remember when I got in there, the only people who really worked in the office at that point in time, and I guess it's probably at a lot of offices, were the heavy hitters. And I wanted to office right away. So I've paid for an office since the get-go. And I remember like I'd be sitting in office and someone would be walking down the hall and they would have just gotten a sign call, but they're about to go on vacation. So they'd stop by my office, ask me if I wanted it. Cool. And that happened all the time. So even, I mean, really as long as I've had my license, it's been about 40% of our closed business. But now it's gone from agents in the office who are just unloading the crap they don't want to deal with to $1 million referrals from state to state. So that side of the business now is the way that when I go and I speak at different things, but I'm really purposeful. So when I go to an educational thing, like I was at NAR's YPN conference I guess it's been about a year now, like last August. I collect the cards, scan them to my assistant. She emails them right away and gets them on a drip campaign. And then I handwrite them all cards. And so between the two of us, we get everybody into the database and reminded, like, thank you for talking to me or whatever. And then once a quarter, my assistant calls our entire agent database to update the information we have on them because we want to be able to send them referrals. But of course, it's another touch for them to remember to send us referrals. Yeah,
that's all. I mean, that really, it's just like you're treating them just like a lead from an open house. Yeah. Like it's just another, that's dope.
And it's nice because, so what I think is super important about it is when we do that agent to agent stuff, I think people think like, well, what are the odds they know someone who's going to move to Phoenix? And they might not. Although Phoenix is a hot spot for especially like our Chicago referral sources or people back east, like they know people coming all the time. But if somebody is in a brokerage and they have a referral going out, oftentimes they'll ask, like, do you know anybody in Phoenix? They'll ask the owner, they'll ask whoever. So if I can make touches with those people, now if they have a market or a brokerage of 50 people to 150 people to 300 people, if I can get to a couple people there, then if anybody comes up with a Phoenix referral, now I have a few key people referring them my way.
Yeah, I love it. And so what percentage of your business right now is referrals, are you saying?
About 40.
About 40.
Which is funny because the national average of agent-to-agent referrals is 3%.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty great market out there if you actually are purposeful about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're intentional with it. And just so our listeners understand, because you might be thinking, but dude, I mean, 40%, I can't do math very well in my head. But, I mean, dude, that's almost 200 G's. I mean, that's $180,000 a year in commissions by people just sending you spoon feeding. Not spoon feeding. I mean, you're earning it.
But yeah, you still have to. And I think the second thought is usually like, well, you have to pay out a referral fee. Yes, I do pay a referral fee.
Didn't have to market for it,
of course. But I didn't have to pay to get the lead, and also they will then send me referrals. So obviously, yes, I pay the agent on that referral because that is something that they gave me, but then we work really hard to get referrals from that one client. So if somebody refers me 3 pieces of business in a year, then I have 25 times the amount that I paid out to that agent. So it's always worth it in the long run.
Yeah, and it's nuts how like narrow-minded real estate agents are about commissions. Oh, dude, I don't want to. It's like, how much business are you giving up due to the work that you're turning down because there's a referral fee associated to it? If you do your job and you get those future referrals, plus that referring agent's going to send you other deals potentially, or when they have somebody in their office, or you don't always know where those referrals are coming from. It might have been a Facebook group of, hey, do you know anybody that sells here? Oh, well, hey, I've sent a referral to Kelly. She kicks freaking ass, hook her up. You may have not known that referral kind of came from referred by that other person, but they flood in. So
most definitely. And then the last piece of our business right now is Facebook. And so I consider my sphere of influence in Facebook to be a little bit different. My sphere of influence would be people I'm actively, like, I have their phone number and email address for. Okay. So to me, that's somebody I probably know, have seen recently, whereas Facebook could be someone I went to high school with that I haven't seen in 8 to 10 years, that only knows about real estate because of Facebook. So we don't pay for ads or anything like that. It's just me being very active about what I'm doing on Facebook. And we try to keep it friendly so people don't unfriend me and think that all I talk about is real estate. But that might be something like, just left my recording session with Joshua. It was awesome. Time for a Starbucks, with a picture of a Starbucks. So now I'm talking about being active in the real estate industry, but really we're talking about Starbucks. So I guess like subliminal messaging a little bit.
Living life.
And tons of business that way, which is free and it's easy and it's really what we're already doing anyway. It's just being more purposeful about it.
So with all of your business, I mean, it's straight up a prospecting-based business.
Right now, we're officially making the move to being more marketing-based. I very much run the business by the Red Book, Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And in the book, it talks about being marketing based, prospecting enhanced. And I remember talking to my coach and saying, like, well, that doesn't make sense to me because for so long I've been prospecting based, marketing enhanced. And I was reminded by the fact that we lead with revenue in this business. And when you lead with revenue, then you can have revenue. But if we lead with revenue, then eventually you have to switch over to being marketing based. So we're making the switch to it right now, which will be an interesting perspective for me because I'm used to seeing our P&L look so clean and pretty and happy all the time. And it might get a little bit dirty for a while. Yeah,
but so many people focus on what their profit margin is, but when I was active in the business, having 75, 80% profit margin months were common, where now it's like, I might hit that, 30 kind of a low, but maybe that, 45, 50 is kind of where I typically play. So it's a lot lower, but we're doing so many more transactions. So yeah, don't get hung up so much on that, dude. It's, what I mean? So many agents do, but at the end of the day, it's how much money you put in your bank account. So no, dope, love it. So, okay, so then amongst all of this, because you're growing, you start growing a team, right? So you always start off with a TC. How did you know to start off with a TC?
I don't know. Someone must have said something. Like, have you considered that? And maybe it was the team leader at our office, or I don't know what it was. But I remember thinking I wanted to know how they ran. So I did my first 4 deals by myself. And that was a purposeful choice I made. And then as soon as 4 closed, number 5 and on was with a transaction coordinator. It's just, if you look at the personality profile of an agent that should be successful, the odds are that detail-oriented, kind of behind-the-scenes task list isn't going to be something I'm great at, or that any other pretty good agent would be good at. So why waste my time and energy on something I stink at and instead go out there and look for new business? And then the fact that you paid them out of the close of escrow for me was a win. I mean, it's not a cost. They just take a piece of the pie, and that kind of leverage I'm all for. So that for me was a no-brainer. It was a little bit harder pill to swallow when I hired Ashley. Because, the actual number change wasn't that big of a deal, but now I am officially signing on to pay their mortgage and their car payment and stuff, and that's not something you just don't go to work because you want to sleep in that day or whatever. Her life is very much dependent on the business I'm able to create for the team.
Yep. Awesome. Dig it, dude. Yeah, you created some instant new accountability for yourself, which is good, though, right?
It is good,
It's good to have you back into a corner, man. It's like when I've gotten myself in financial debt, like that's when I've rebounded the freaking hardest, right? Which you kind of, been through that yourself. So, okay, and now you're at the point now where you mentioned, okay, now you've got a full-time, you've got Ashley full-time, you've got other full-time support staff, you've got full-time buyer agents. So let's go through, and just speaking of your team growth, you bring Ashley from part-time to full-time. Then what was your next hire? Then at what point did you decide to start bringing on buyer agents? And then where are you going with your hires?
So Ashley has been my only hire up until this last Friday. So it was just her and I this whole time.
Okay.
Which, in retrospect, could have probably grown a little bit faster, but I liked how we were working, so it's just been the two of us. So the transaction coordinator and buyer's agent singular, were supposed to be at the same time, and the transaction coordinator I found got another job right before I offered her the job with us. So
found another job, meaning did she close one of your deals? What do you mean by that?
She decided not to go into real estate in the long run, so she was the perfect candidate, and I just dragged my feet with hiring her, and in the meantime, she continued to hunt for a new career and found one before us. So that was a bummer. So that kind of threw my plan a little bit askew. We were supposed to hire them both at the same time. I think the thought process behind it is if we bring on a buyer's agent, Ashley's currently our transaction coordinator and in charge of marketing and is already overwhelmed with what I already do. So by bringing on another buyer's agent, her job will not get at all easier. It will get significantly harder, and obviously something's going to drop, either the transaction side of things or the marketing side of things, and really we need both. So when I started to look for the buyer's agent, I had the intention of just bringing on the one right at about the same time as the TC, but then I found two that I loved. Absolutely love. They're absolute rock stars and will be a phenomenal addition to the team. And of course, I thought, well, I wasn't wanting to hire two. I just wanted one. But you make room for talent, and they're both really talented people. So it'll just push me to work quite a bit harder to get those listings so we can get them the leads. But so we decided to bring both of them on. So in the meantime, we've hired a per transaction basis transaction coordinator who's in our office, so she'll handle our transactions so Ashley can focus on marketing while I train the two new buyer's agents.
Yep.
Lots of moving pieces.
Yeah. So what, no, I love it though. I love it. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? So there's no such thing as greatness, or you can't achieve greatness, I should say, by yourself, right? There's not a great company or a great individual. It's a group of individuals that kick ass that make that organization great. So you got to have the talent. What are your goals for this? I mean, you've achieved so much, dude, in such a short span. Where do you see yourself going with this?
I guess to answer the question, it would depend on the time frame. So some of my biggest goals, I'd love to be a coach. So that's what I'm currently working towards right now. There's a certain production level that you have to hit from consecutive years before I would qualify for the company I'd like to work for.
Jump into maps?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so working towards that. And then eventually I'd also like to have what we would call expansion teams. So we'll keep our team here in Phoenix. And then I'd also love to have a team in San Diego, which is where my husband's from. So that way we can live some of our life there. So expansion teams plus being able to coach would be wonderful. And the idea is I'd love to grow the business to a level in which I can go pursue other options. They'll probably still always be in real estate. I don't ever see myself leaving the real estate industry, but I'd love to be able to have a business, a team that can run on their own with me coming in to do consultative work as opposed to management work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's a fun place to get to.
Someday.
Yeah, I know you will. No, it's not someday. It's just
when?
At what point it's going to happen. Absolutely, dude. Okay, so let's talk about systems. Because without systems, chaos is the default. right? And I know you're a planner, so I'm sure you've got some pretty dope epic systems in place so you can inspect what you expect and make sure things are done the same way. Consistency, you talked about consistency before, over and over and over. What kind of systems do you do to inspect what you expect? What kind of systems do you do to make sure that you continue that consistency that you do?
I would suppose the biggest way we look for consistency would be in our numbers. So we use, I guess it's called software. I'm not very techie. So this website and or software that I use called KDNA, which tracks pretty much any number I'd want to account for. So I now know that it takes 115 voice-to-voice contacts for me to get an appointment. Those are still really high conversion numbers, but they used to be 125 as of first quarter. So I can constantly watch and see what I'm shaving down to get success. Same thing on appointment to contract ratio and stuff like that. So that tracks a lot of the numbers that I've been looking for.
What's the name of it again?
KDNA.
So like KD, like just the and A?
Like K is in Kelly,
Okay.
D is in dog, N is in Nancy, and A is in apple.
Okay, gotcha.
K like DNA, but with
Okay,
K on the front. Don't know what it stands for, but I assume
But it
something
works.
with DNA. And it works. It's awesome. It actually just comes to us through the coaching company, so I've never needed to do research on it, but I love the product, so we'll probably stay with it. So that for me is how I do a lot of numbers work as far as keeping that systematic. We have a system for most anything, but to me right now they're all subpar. We've been developing them, and maybe that's why I look at them that way, because they're always being developed and grown upon. And so, we have everything from the second I get an appointment to what it looks like until it's under contract. And then, of course, we have the same system for contract close. We've got systems for working with the for sale by owners that we work with. I would say systems on everything. Can I speak to maybe a specific system you'd be interested in?
Well, I don't. Let's just go with your we kind of already talked about this, but your referral source, right? So you get the referral. What does that look like? And when you talk about, okay, our systems are always a work in progress. I mean, specific. I mean, are you using like a Google Drive? I mean, like what are you kind of using to kind of track it? How are you doing it? So let's just use that for example. An agent out of Chicago is referring you a deal. What happens?
Awesome. So first thing, we make contact with them, both the agent who referred it, if we haven't already spoken with them, and then also the client. Establish what their needs are. And all that information gets uploaded into, we use eEdge for our CRM.
Okay.
So it's KW thing. So gets uploaded into eEdge. Talk with the potential client, schedule an appointment. So if they're out of state, sometimes that's a phone appointment. Otherwise, more than that, they're usually coming to the Valley to check something out. So figure out when that is. At that point in time, they're considered a lead in our database until we get assigned by our broker agreement. We consider them a lead. So the leads I work most often. At least every week, they're all being followed up with. So that way I can keep track of them and nobody falls through the cracks. Once we have our appointment with them, then I skipped a step. We also send out handwritten cards depending on the scenario. So usually to both the agent and the prospect. So we meet with them, our buyer presentation, assuming it's a buyer, but also it could be a listing. So the buyer presentation would cover stats on the current market, what it's like working with the team, and then what it looks like buying a house. Especially if they're from out of state. Sometimes if it's an attorney state or if they do table funding or something like that, their process out here could look very different than what they're used to. If it's a listing side of things, our listing presentation mostly covers price because more often than not we see that that's what gets a house to sell. And then from there we talk about kind of our 4-prong marketing plan. So we go through that and then sign the paperwork.
So is all this, when you say you plug them into eEdge, is this kind of like built out where you plug it in and then it like a task list kind of hits like, okay, all these things need to happen? I mean, how are you making sure that nothing slips through the cracks with that?
Awesome. So in eEdge, they get put on a drip campaign right away. So that side of the follow-up is automated. And then when I reach out to them every week, yes, we're just going through what's next on the list.
Okay.
So following up with them, phone calls, shooting a card, whatever. So
and you just do it, task yourself to for the next event.
Yep.
Okay, dude. So let's talk about goal setting, right? So you've got,
that's my favorite part.
Yeah. So you've got some big goals. You've not that you just have big goals. I mean, you've accomplished some big epic shit, right? So you've already set big goals and you've crushed those goals. And I know you already have huge future goals. What do you do to goal set? What do you do to stay positive? And for yourself personally, I mean, how does walk us through what that looks like?
So every year we do business planning for the year, which is something that surprisingly I am learning that like almost nobody else does. So I would say start with goal planning.
So hold on. You keep saying we. Is this something that you do with your team? Is this something that you do with your team and then by yourself? I mean, what do you mean by we?
So I always say we when we're talking positively, and then I when I'm speaking negatively. And that's a philosophy the whole team has.
Okay.
So we can always make the team look bright and shiny, and we can take personal responsibility for our errors. So I say we a lot, and thank you for catching me on it because it's not specific in this case. It's always been me doing the goal setting because I'm the only producing agent. So that's historically how it's been. Moving forward, what it'll be is me goal planning for what I'd like the team to look like, while also having our buyer's agents plan for what they would like, and then making sure those numbers align. If they don't align, then it's coaching them to think bigger, if that's what I need them to be doing. Or if they're already shooting for the stars, then great, maybe I need to be bumping up my goals and I haven't thought big enough. So historically, it's been me.
Okay.
And so I plan for what I want the numbers, in the past, I've planned on what I want the team numbers to look like. So that's going through this particular, most years it's been commission based. How much money do I want to make? This year has been a little bit different because I am shooting to be a coach, and so it was more transaction based this year. So 75 transactions was our goal this year. So then I go through and do conversion rates on everything to figure out how many appointments. Basically, we break it down to the week. How many appointments on the listing side and buy side do we need to be going on in any given week? So it takes a long time to do all that, but oh my gosh, it gives you so much clarity, and it's pretty easy to figure out, are we ahead, are we behind, and kind of hone down from there. So I spend a lot of time, and usually we do early October, because if we're always 30, 60, 90 days out from our next payday, quarter four is not really quarter four, it's quarter one of the next year. So go through and do all that planning, but a business plan in itself is very complicated to read, or should be if you've gone through all the detail of everything. And so the business plan I do has a couple different tabs, and it's an Excel sheet, and so I've got numbers and words and things all over the place, and for me it's very overwhelming. I'm not going to go back and look at that regularly. It's something to me that's a little bit too much on a daily basis. So then I convert that into what we call a 411.
Okay.
So 4 weeks are along the bottom of the page, 1 month is in the middle, and then the yearly goals are at the top. So 2 weeks ago, then I was doing my monthly planning for July. So what I do is I have at the top of the page our running goals of what I want to hit. So that's GCI, appointments on the buy and sale side, contracts on the buy and sale side, closings on the both sides together, and then our big marketing things that we want to hit in a year. So I can see, all right, this is where we have a deficiency, this is where we're good on, give me better focus. So then when I break down into the monthly, we can just simply divide the big numbers by 12, and you could do it that way. Or if you're ahead in some areas or behind in some areas, then we need to divide them by the rest of the year, so we can then narrow the focus. So I set what I want the month to look like, and then every Friday I look at what I want my week to look like. If I need to go on 8 appointments for the month, then I need to go on 2 appointments a week, whatever that looks like. So that's what keeps me regularly accountable. So everybody on the team, so historically Ashley and I, but moving forward, everyone on the team will have their own 411. So once I go through and set the goals for the team, Ashley goes through, looks at them, and sees, based off of what Kelly's going to be doing this year, what do I need to make better? Because she works with a lot of our systems. So if I'm doubling the amount of listing appointments I'm going on, we're probably going to need to do some work on the listing side of things so we can tighten it up and just be a little bit more efficient.
Now, with your goal setting, do you goal set outside of business, or is it just you just honed on business, but do you have other goals like relationship goals, health goals? Do you have other types of goals?
I break them into 2 categories, business and personal.
Okay.
So I could narrow it down from there, I suppose, but historically I haven't. So in my yearly goals, we put all the big trips we want to go on. So we're doing Cayman Islands in a couple months. We're doing Georgia next week, and so a bunch of big things that we'll put on there. And then from there we do bigger, I guess they would be financial goals. So we're buying a new house this year, so that's in there. How much we want to save is there. If there's any big key relationship things coming up, my wedding was on the 2014 411, or like our relationship counseling and stuff that we did before that was on there. So bigger items go on the yearly one. Monthly to me is more like a to-do list, because by the time like October hits, Cayman Islands has already been paid for, so like it's not something I'm planning for, it's more so something I'm doing. So then the monthly and the weekly ones become more like making sure I'm keeping that personal side in mind when I'm business planning.
No, this really has nothing to do with business, but it has a lot to do with business, right? So I mean, for those entrepreneurs out there that are married, are you sharing your business plan as well with your husband? So then you guys can be congruent, or okay, here's our personal goals together. Here's my business goals. So that way you guys are congruent on getting that support and making sure that you're congruent with your goals.
I'd say yes and no. So yes, in that Dustin knows, my husband knows the big key rocks in the business, namely how much money that we'll be bringing in from that. He's not, and I think it would probably depend on each relationship and the personality style of the person on the other side. Our family and friends kind of relate us to the tortoise and the hare. So Dustin is the steady guy in our relationship. He's phenomenal and so necessary to have that person, whereas I'm the hare who's like moving 1,000 miles a minute, and I'm a lot less consistent than Dustin is. So how the business runs, he doesn't really care as much about. When I'm making huge financial decisions that'll impact the business, I run them by him, but he never seems to ever disagree. It's more like a sounding board to make sure we're on the same page, because the money I'm spending in the business, even though it's business's money, is our money. And so the big rocks we'll talk about, but besides that, it's not his it's not how his brain works. Dustin's a lot more he's not an entrepreneur by nature, which is fine with me. I don't need him to be. So a lot of the things we talk about and things we do to him are a lot more foreign, whereas on our team, he would be a great CEO, I guess. Like, he could manage a team, but the growth behind it and the weird things that we do in our business that maybe isn't normal in corporate America is a little bit more foreign to him. So yes, we talk about the big stuff, but as far as the day-to-day stuff, he doesn't really care, nor do I care to educate him on it.
No, I dig it, and I think it's cool because it is, opposites do attract, right? Mm-hmm. You kind of balance it out, right? So, no, that's good, man. So let's talk about self-development, because I know you're big on self-development. You've always had a coach. You're aspiring to become a coach. So what kind of things do you do for self-development? What does that look like on an annual basis, a weekly basis, a daily basis for you?
So I actually just started doing the Miracle Morning. Have you read that yet?
I haven't, but I know all that with Hal Elrod.
Delightful. So that's been my most recent development, because I realized I was and so I just read Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents, and I really connected well with the agent that is kind of like highlighted in the book, and it's this idea that...
Michael Mayer, right?
No.
He co-wrote the book.
He co-wrote the book. So the guy I think that they're talking about in the book is this guy named Rick. So Rick is a top agent in his area, which I'm not a top agent, but I know I do some business. And anywhere he goes, people happen to notice him or like say hey or whatever. But inside he feels like he's like really working at half mass. And I had been feeling like that a little bit. Like, I was still going to work and we're growing like crazy, but I just really felt like I was kind of like on the inside. So I needed a revamp, a new boost. And so I've been working the Miracle Morning, which has been helpful for me because one big part of it is doing affirmations, which I've always done, but not as diligently. Visualization, which I've always done, just not as diligently. Reading, same. And then scripting or writing in a journal, which I do all of them without a doubt. And I think at a decent level, but not consistently enough to give me a basis. And I think that's the systemization of our own lives that's very helpful. So creating these new habits worth forming on. So every day I do some reading. Recently I'm rereading MREA, and we're also starting 7 Levels of Communication by Michael Mayer for our team's book club that we're doing. I exercise every morning, which sometimes is just a walk around the block, and sometimes that's a full gym session. So I guess it depends on the day. So I guess that's what my daily life looks like. Outside of that, I'm a voracious reader. And so I read for fun every now and then, but most of the time there's some sort of business book, which I'm pretty picky on because I don't really like the dry stuff. And so business books or self-help books I think are awesome. For the listeners who are younger, I absolutely loved, and I'm a huge proponent for The Defining Decade, which is about how we grow in our 20s and how it essentially sets the stage for us the rest of our lives. And I think people who are part of this generation understand that they can see the difference between people who care about that and people who don't. And I think for people who are in a growth mindset right now, phenomenal book to read. I do have a coach, so I meet with her every Monday at 1, so I'll be talking to Karen today. I've coached with a couple different companies. Right now I'm very happy with the way I'm being coached and really appreciate it. So Karen and I meet every Monday for a half hour and usually talk about, to me, she's more of a business coach than a real estate coach. Right. Sure, we talk about real estate stuff, and there's always things that we can be improving upon. And I do work on that with her, but for the last few months, it's all been about team growth. And we do a lot of work right now, and my P&L has always been a foreign concept to me, so doing some growth there. Yearly, I go to a lot of the same stuff every year. Most of it is around real estate growth with some sort of self-component in it. So I go to Keller Williams annual convention every year, as well as a couple of their smaller conventions. I go to a lot of NAR stuff, which has been helpful. And then I help out with a lot of education stuff here in the Valley. So like how you came and spoke at our YPN event, I'm the vice chair there. And so we do lots of classes and growth for our members that way. There's really not much I don't do when it comes to self-development and self-growth. In MREA, yesterday I was just reading that they said if you want your business to grow, you have to grow first to the extent that you want it to be growing, and then the business will vacillate from there. And a bold law that we always quote is the business grows to the extent that you do. It's kind of the short version of that. And I like that theory a lot, and I think that a lot of the people who excel at a very high level in real estate are also, of that mind. And so there's not a lot of people I can think of that don't have that growth mindset that are great.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and Jim Rohn, who I'm a huge fan of, unfortunately he's no longer here, but he always say the quickest way to be, to get the goals that you want to get or achieve is to become that person first. You've got to become that person first. If you want to become a millionaire, you need to have a millionaire mindset first. And you look like 85% of professional athletes, dude, they're done and they're bankrupt in 2 years after retirement. They're getting millions and millions and millions on an annual basis, but they don't have the mental capacity to handle it. So yeah, you're either growing or you're dying, period, right? So love that. So one thing I kind of want to hone in on that you talked about with your coaches, you're on your third coach, really happy with where you're at right now. I know there's a lot of great coaches out there, but unfortunately there's a lot of shitty coaches out there, right? I truly think that there's more coaches, especially in real estate, than other industries that I've seen and I've witnessed that put more agents out of business than they do help. What do you recommend to our listeners out there? Because now you're wanting to become a coach, right? So you're really kind of probably immersing yourself into that coach. Okay, how do I want to be coach? What kind of coach do I want to show up as? How do I want to impact lives? What do you think agents need to look at in a coach? Like, let's say, because you're one-on-one coaching, right? So let's say they want to go get a one-on-one coach. What are some things that they should really do? Whether it's internally, analyzing their own business and also asking questions of that specific coach. What are some maybe things that you wished you would have done earlier on, or that you can recommend them to do if they're at that point looking for a one-on-one coach?
For me, it's been good to, let's see, what are the biggest things? So I think the number one biggest thing would probably to find a coach that has actually done what you're looking to do. So the coach and I've always had that with all my coaches, but as I've grown, I've needed a new coach that has reached that kind of next level. So my current coach, Karen, has done almost every single thing I've ever wanted to do in real estate. And so it's helpful that she's been where I've been. And sometimes we both need to remember that our paths have not been mirrored. They're just growing in a similar pattern. So sometimes she's talking to me from the mental perspective of I'm already at a different level and I need to hone that in, or vice versa. I need to sometimes up my game to meet her where she's at. And so I like that she's actually done what I want to do. So working with a coach that has had success is important. I think it's also important to remember the coach is not your friend. I happen to get along really well with Karen, which is helpful, but she's not somebody she doesn't live in Arizona, so that's helpful. She wouldn't be someone I would spend a lot of time with. This person should challenge you and should make you really uncomfortable a lot. And most people that you're near and dear and close to always want to make you feel good, which is great for life and some relationships and marriage and things like all these things that's helpful for, not helpful with a coach. You need someone who's always making you second guess what you're doing, question what you're doing, upset you, make you see the real of what's happening, and Karen's awfully good at that. And then I think it's helpful, I had a third thought there. What was the third thing? I don't remember what the third thing is, but what just popped into my mind is that the personality sets are often very different. So they should be able to communicate with you in a way that you like to be that you are effective in communicating, but sometimes that's not, I guess it's not chummy.
Right.
It's a little bit different. There was a third thing, and now I can't think of it. So if it comes back to my mind, I'll tell you.
We'll hit it. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so then you've had this massive success, and you're aspiring to be a coach. Mm-hmm. So let's go into, maybe we have some listeners here that are wanting to get into real estate, or maybe a new agent that's struggling. Or, dude, let's just face it, your average real estate agent out there today that's even been in the business, that's even surpassed the kind of fail out rate, in the first 3 years. The average real estate agent makes more money working at McDonald's than doing the real estate business full time, right? So what do you feel like are the top 3 biggest mistakes real estate agents make that really just never kind of hit that stride of success that that you've hit?
I really don't think there's any mistakes agents make out there. Like, it's not like you go buy a product and it makes you bankrupt. Like, very infrequently do we hear stories like that. Like, someone has made such a grievous error that it comes and bites them or something like that. More often than not, unfortunately, I think it's who somebody is, or their perceived reality of real estate. So most of the errors I see, and I'm a mentor in my office, so we often see with the dropout rate in agents is they don't understand the workload that's involved. So the fact that this is a career. If you would not pay yourself that much money, or somebody else that much money to do the job, why would you make that money anyway? So if you wouldn't pay yourself $100,000 to replace yourself, guess what? You're probably not going to make $100,000 that year. And so it is a job, and so I would say that's job one, is to know that how are you showing up? Are you working at least an 8 to 5? Are you working your 8 hours a day? And how are you working in those hours? So I think another issue that new agents face is this time-filling fluff. And in my opinion, you can probably judge your success by the number of people you're talking to or the quality of those conversations. So I do believe there is quality and quantity. But if you're spending 20 hours a week in some form of CE class, or getting Starbucks on your way to work, or doing all these different things that are things that I think people count in their workday, but maybe aren't actually hours building their business, that's an issue. So I say work smarter, not work harder.
What do you think that they should do, though? Because I meet a lot of real estate agents that have the hustle, right? Like I mean, they're legitimately, though, at 6 a.m. they're suited up, they're ready to rock and roll. But they have no idea what the hell to do. Like, they just they're like, dude, like, and I get asked this question all the time. We have it's called our knowledge round, where listeners can send any question we answer live on the show, and I get it all the time. Dude, I'm a new agent. Like, I'm hungry, but I have no freaking clue what to do. Like, I find myself twiddling my thumb, so they go show up to the CE class because they have no idea what to do. Then they go to the broker in their office, who was a failed agent that took a salary job as an office manager or whatever. So they're getting the same shitty advice that they failed at. And I mean, what are some things that, okay, let's just say, they get that, right? Okay, like, I'm going to devote 12 hours a day, 7 days a week to whatever it takes, which is, I mean, that's still, I mean, you and I probably was 18 hours a day for years straight. But they've got the hustle. But they don't know tactical activities to do. What are maybe a couple things that, like, every new agent should, you recommend that they go out to do that have any money?
Okay.
Right?
So I would say number one is you can ask yourself, what should I be doing right now to generate new business? So for everybody, that's different. So what I do, so I call FSBOs, for sale by owners, and that's something I enjoy doing. And most people would rather shoot themselves in the face than have to cold call somebody on the phone. Fine. You can still have success not doing that, but what are you doing to generate new business? So the phone is an awfully handy way to do that, regardless of who you're calling. If it's your sphere of influence, past clients, or if you're brand new, maybe that's, like when I was young, that was my friends' parents, talking to them, people they would know that was in real estate. That could be blogging, that could be social media, that could be sending mailers, which I wouldn't recommend coming from a place where you're not leading with revenue, but for some people, maybe that's an option. So there's a lot of things you can do on the phone, and then open houses are another great opportunity. So for a lot of new agents, and I always forget that people don't know this, you can hold somebody else's listings open. Yeah. So finding an agent that maybe has a lot of inventory, because the odds are they're not able to hold all those open, or maybe just don't want to or care to. I've never had success in open houses. It's not my thing. I know you guys do a great job with open houses, so that's a very different way of looking at things. And if an agent wants to be great at that, they can. So open houses are a great way to success. Working Michael Mayer's 7 levels of communication is another great way to do it. So that's more about the quality of a contact versus the quantity. So I would say we can always answer that question. Sometimes it just makes us uncomfortable.
Right.
So get over the uncomfortableness. I always tell when people ask, like, what was that first year like? I wanted to vomit every single day I went to work because I was always so nervous and so uncomfortable all the time. And that's when we have a lot of growth. If we feel terrible, then we're growing, which is delightful. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, that means you're stretching yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. We just need to keep it within happy limits of not wanting to quit real estate, I suppose. But answer that question. What am I doing right now to grow my business or to sell real estate? Because I guess going to a class it's working on your business but not in it, or vice versa. Yep. Either way, it's different. But who am I finding today?
Right, dig it, dude. So, top 3 favorite books. Maybe not real estate specific, but just top 3 favorite business books of all time. Like if you're like, okay, of all the other books, like, got eliminated, these were the only 3 left that I could keep or take with me to reread and reread. Or if you had a recommendation to listeners or any brand new agents or potential, future coaching clients, what are your top 3 books?
I love 7 Levels of Communication by Michael Mayer. It's cool because it has an actual story to it, whereas I think a lot of business books are businessy, and I don't.
It's written in form of a fable.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah.
And that's awesome. It's a quick read. The message behind it is incredible. It's really easy to implement once you continue to read it. I loved Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect. The idea that it's not just like how you said when agents fail, it's not that big mistake, that employee who embezzled all their money or something like that. We can always rebuild from stuff like that. It's every day I didn't talk to 20 new people, and eventually I just had nobody else to talk to and no money, and I left the business. So it's the little things that we're doing every day that are compounding. Loved The Compound Effect. And I loved The Defining Decade.
Okay, yep.
I had, especially when I was new in the business and was already at a very high stress level, I remember one of the things is if something great happened, it was literally euphoria. Like I got a $300,000 house in escrow, and that was back when the average price point was like $130,000, and this is the best thing that could happen. $9,000 payday. Yes, I'm excited. Let's do it. And then we'd have a bad appraisal come in, and I would cry over it, or an agent would say something and I would just be devastated. And there was so much there was no kind of in the middle. And as I was reading the book, I realized it's the actual development of our brain. The ability to control your highs and lows is one of the last parts of your brain that's developed, and it doesn't develop until you're almost in your late 20s. And I remember thinking they described the feeling as a leaf blowing in the wind. And when the highs catch you, your leaf can blow high. And then when the lows catch you, you would crash and your leaf would break and fall apart. And I remember thinking that is how I feel every single day. And so it was cool to read something and know the mentality behind it. And it's the only book I've found that I enjoy that I think is dedicated to this age range. And it covers the 3 main things that they cover are the 2 main that I remember were the work aspect, so your career life, and then your love life. And then I believe they also talk about other miscellaneous relationships in its own section. But it's a phenomenal book for anyone that's younger. Yep,
badass, dude. All right, so you get wiped out financially, right? So just something.
That sucked.
But let's just say, for example, you get wiped out financially, or you get up and move and you go to a different spot and you have no money, right? Maybe a few $100s to your name. But you've got this, really this PhD in real estate that you've acquired over the last few years. You've retained all the knowledge, everything that you know today. But you're wiped out. You're starting yourself, your laptop, just you, dude. What are the first few things that you go out there, immediately start implementing to rebuild the business that you built?
The first thing I would do, which is very specific, is I would join a BNI, Business Networking International, or whatever referral group you're down for. But I joined the BNI I'm in now. It's been up and running for 6 months now. And at the end of this month, I will have closed almost $3 million from just the BNI. So especially
$3 million this year, $3 million
just in the last 6 months.
Oh wow, damn, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not too shabby. $90,000 in commission, and I not only appreciate the way that looks in my profit and loss statement, but I also really like what it gives me on the other side of things, which is a level of resources for my clients. My clients need anything, and I have it. So if I was new to an area, A, I would have no business, which stinks, and B, I would have no resources for my clients, which makes me a terrible real estate agent. So we need both of those things. So I would join a BNI. It's free to call for sale by owners, and I would certainly do that. I can rock those for sale by owners, and I feel comfortable with them. Those are two main things I would do. And then from there, I would still do a lot of networking with agents. I think that when real estate agents get into different scenarios, we can, what would we do different? I would do nothing different. I would just not have my past clients or my sphere of influence to draw on, but everything else I would do the same.
Yep. Awesome. What's a quick sample here for sale by owner script?
Hi, I'm calling about the house for sale. Is it still available? And you would say yes.
Yes.
And then I would say, wonderful. Well, I work with a lot of for sale by owners in your area, and I found that on average, we're able to help net our clients about 13% more selling with us compared to selling on your own. Is that a conversation worth having? Usually they say, I don't want to pay a commission. Great. That's not why I'm calling. I was actually talking about the ability to make you more money, even if you did have to pay a commission. So is that something worth talking about? And usually if you ask it in enough different ways, they'll start to see what I'm talking about, which is actually a NAR statistic that shows, and actually 2014 was a really good year for FSBOs. They were about 13% off, whereas historically they're closer to 20% off. So educating them that that they're losing more money selling on their own than they would be paying out in a commission.
So, and that's a script that a brand new agent could do because they just they go to NAR, pull the stat. It's not like a stat that you've had to personally track. It's just, okay.
Which is something else you said earlier. You were talking about how little new agents make, which is true. New agents make no money. And NAR proves that. They did a study that shows agents in the business less than 10 years make on average less than $10,000 a year. $9,000 a year is what they came up with, and blew my mind. Does not need to be like that, but yes. So
yeah, and the problem, and I don't want to say it's a problem with NAR, but the problem that a lot of these stats get thrown as their averages. Mm-hmm. How many of these are people that just have a license just in case, or I would love to know I'd love to see them broken up from like full-time agents to, you know what I mean? Yes. So because it is tough, but there is the biggest income gap discrepancy. One thing I love about real estate, because I've always hated real estate, right? So people are like, what do you mean you hate real estate? You've sold like 4,000 homes, dude. You want to talk, I'm like, yeah, I absolutely love the opportunities that this industry brings, but I've never loved real estate. Now I love people. I do love helping people accomplish their goals, but like to me, I don't like houses. Like it's four walls and a freaking roof to me. Like I don't like house shopping. I'm not like, oh, look at this grin. Like to me, I'm like, dude, okay, let's get the hell out of here and like go do something epic, right? But there's no industry I've ever found in my lifetime that you can go out there and create more opportunities. Like if you're just committed, to success, you'll go out there and whoop everybody's ass because there's so much mediocrity. It is just absolutely insane, which can be tough for people too in this business because then we're co-broking. Right? So you're dealing with that mediocrity and the cross sell, and then now you've got to babysit both sides of the file. And so there's parts of it that can be frustrating, but it becomes a blessing because you really have no competition, right?
Yeah.
So before I get into the last question here, how do people reach you? So maybe they're like, dude, I really connect with Kelly. She's not like Josh where he's yelling at me, telling me I have to do open houses all day long, whatever it may be. How do people reach out to you, maybe just to ask you a question? Or how do they reach out to you? I know you're not coaching yet, but maybe they have interest and say, hey, second that you are, like I want you as my coach. How do people get a hold of you? We're in 85 countries, have people all over, not just the United States, but over the planet. How do people get a hold of you for a specific question, or if they want to reach out to you to learn more about your coaching?
Yeah, anyone is always welcome to reach out, and we do that pretty much anywhere we go. We tend to have somebody who has some question about something, especially, and I'm sure this happened to you as well, right after 30 under 30. I mean, probably like once a week, I get somebody who reaches out with questions kind of like what we're talking about today, which is unfortunately very vague, and I appreciate specific questions because it gives me the opportunity to help in a direct way. But when somebody shows up and is like, hey, I want to know, like, what should I do for success? It's anything, everything. I don't know what to tell you.
Don't ask stupid questions to start.
Yeah. So, yes, we're more than happy to help anyone, anywhere, for anything. So, email is usually the best and easiest way. That's kellyhenderson@kw.com. Our Facebook page is a great way to see how our social media works. So, that's facebook.com/Momentum Real Estate Group. Our website is another great tool, momentumre.com. I think I have a LinkedIn. I'm not techie at all. That's all Ashley. So don't get me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, I'll never respond to you ever. I would say email or Facebook is usually the two best ways. And of course, by phone, someone could call me.
Awesome. Love it. So momentum. You've chosen to not have your name in your real estate team name, which I think is brilliant. I didn't go that route. I had my name in mind first and then removed it. Why did you choose to go that route? Is it so you can have a sellable product potentially at the end of the day? I mean, why did you choose to pick a name that's not your own and branding your own name?
With my answer, I would like to say that anyone can do anything they want, and I fully support that. However, if I was to ever work on somebody else's team, I certainly would not put their name on mine. So I wouldn't expect anything from the caliber of person I'm hoping to work for us. So like Keller Williams, for example, let's take that. It is Gary Keller and what's-his-face Williams' name put together. But I think it's become such a brand. I don't think people think of a name when they read it. Whereas if it was Kelly Henderson's real estate group, that is a very clear name and what we do. And so because it would take decades to get to the point where people aren't feeling personally branded by that, it just wasn't my style. So I have a marketing friend, and I just told her, this is the feel of my company. This is what we want. This is kind of our mission, values, stuff like that. Like, what comes to your mind? And it was literally the first thing out of her mouth was like momentum, and I loved it. And I feel like that's who I am, like gaining momentum, and I've always felt like that. I don't think there's a peak or anything like that. I think you just are always moving forward, and I loved it.
Yeah, well, and the brilliant thing is because I know you're following Gary's book, which is a brilliant book. Every real estate agent should get out there and read that book. $1 million Real Estate Agent. If you're following that to a T and you get to that 7th level, right, and you don't have your name involved and you have systems and resources where it doesn't take you to operate, now you have a huge sellable product. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to see the kind of the mega team become very, very popular in these asset purchases, because like your average real estate company only nets like 3 to 4%. Well, your average mega team, producing teams that kind of qualify for a purchase are 30 to 40% profit margin. So they're becoming so much more lucrative. So now where your average real estate agent is like, okay, I've been involved in this business for 40 years, ready to retire. Let me just go, take down my license, pack up my box, and see you later. Where now you might have a product you can sell, who knows, for $2 million, $5 million. Who knows what that can be. So it's pretty dope, dude. Okay, so before we leave, we've got our audience, a lot of real estate agents, a lot of lenders, a lot of mortgage brokers, but about half of our audience, entrepreneurs that are either entrepreneurs or people that are thinking of getting into entrepreneurship. And you're somebody that didn't go the corporate America route, almost did, but didn't. You kind of thought about going that path and suggested a different route. But any kind of last words of encouragement? This whole GSD Mode network, this whole brand that we put out on this channel is meant to inspire people to go create epic lives. Blink of an eye, this is all over. Right, we're all going to be 84 years old on our deathbed. The ultimate scoreboard is going to be like, what do we do with this gift called life? Do we piss it away? Do we piss away this one gift called life we've been blessed with, or do we go out there and create something epic? Right? So it's to inspire people to go out there and take initiative and live those and create those epic lives for themselves. But they got to do the work and they got to create it. Any kind of last words, maybe of inspiration to inspire them to go out there and create the life that they know they want and deserve?
I don't know if I'm very good at this, is the short version of it. Actually, before I answer this question, I remembered what the third thing was about coaching.
Okay.
Can I say that now?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I think when people hire a coach, they're looking, gosh, this is brain all over the place. When people are looking for a coach, I think they're looking for answers to questions. I have a problem. You have knowledge. I will seek you for your answer. That's a terrible coach, is what I would say. So I can tell you what to do in real estate to go make more money, or maybe not me to you because you have a lot going for you. But like for a lot of new agents, I could probably tell them, this is your issue, go fix it, or just do it, or whatever suck it up mentality I have for them. And they're not going to have any buy-in to it. People can tell you what to do all the time, but until you've mentally owned that, it's probably not going to happen. So a great coach should be somebody who's leading you to that answer. He's adorable. I have this mentee right now who came to me and he said, you've challenged me to think bigger. And what I'd like to do this next year is make $400,000 over the next 12 months. And here's my business plan for it. And the business plan, based off of conversion rates, called for 480 buyer appointments in the next 12 months. Well, there's 365 days in a year. And so if someone's going to go on like an appointment and a half every single day and work 300 and however many 65 days in a year, then you could do that. And that's also really tough. And so it was asking questions like, well, how many days a week do you want to work? And going through and feeding down this path to say, like, when I first heard it, I thought, like, there's no way in hell that's going to happen. But that's not my choice. If he's bought into it and he's ready for it, I'm down for it. And so I was asking a lot of those questions that realized maybe that was a slightly higher goal than originally planned on and gave some perspective to it. But I didn't tell him that that was a dumb goal and that maybe we should hone it in. It was those questions to lead him to it. So hopefully that's helpful.
No, it absolutely is.
Okay, so your question was, what can I do to like inspire people to go live this epic life and do wonderful things? So I'm not very like motivating, I don't think. I'm a pretty to the fact kind of person. And so my motivation often comes from within. I'm not very good at, I don't think, maybe people find me motivating. I don't feel like I'm good at motivating other people. But what I would tell somebody to do is to look into what your purpose is. We call it a big why. What makes you get up every day. So for me, I grew up really poor. I was homeless for a portion of my childhood. And I always wanted to grow up and never have to worry about money. You want to go somewhere? Let's go. You want to buy something? Let's go buy it. You want to do something? Let's go do it. And for me, that's my big why, to have the financial stability to live whatever life I should choose at any time I should want it. So when I'm feeling down or bummed out or something, not only do I go through a lot of the affirmations and stuff I would normally do, but that's my focus, is today might suck, but it'll put me one step closer to that life by design and not one by default. And so that to me is really important. And the like motto I use for that is what you focus on expands. So when you're having a crappy day and you're thinking about the crappy things that happened, guess what will become from that? It will be more crappy things and more crappy days. But when we focus on something positive or what we want or whatever that looks like, it often just materializes itself. And I don't know if that's like a school of thought, like this like self-actualization or what that is. But in my world, I've found a goal. I tell everyone about it. I focus on it. I write it everywhere. I put pictures of it on my dream board. And like 30 under 30, I came to you 3 years ago and said, like, what should I do? And you gave me some tips and introduced me to your team and how everything runs. And then I put it on Facebook. I told everybody I want to be 30 under 30. And then when I was at NAR, I was purposeful about meeting people who were 30 under 30 and meeting people who are staff there that have helped like see applications and understand what the process looks like. And none of those people were at all directly involved in getting me picked. And also, I learned a lot from them. And by focusing on that, then I was a 30 under 30.
Yep.
So I don't believe that I'm like, I mean, I think positive things about myself, but I don't think I'm like more special than the average Joe. I think that there's just things that we do that help us stand out from other people.
Yeah, I mean, you have clarity on what you want, but what it sounds like, because all these people are like, oh, dude, go focus on your why. Well, some of us, especially when we're young, like, well, we don't know the fuck like what we want. Like, I don't know why, whatever, but start with what you don't want. Like do this because you don't want this. You didn't want to be homeless or put yourself or your family in that homeless position. And no, I love it, dude. It's badass content, awesome information. So all right, your listeners or our listeners out there, as we end every single one of these podcasts every single week with information without implementation is delusion. Like you got to get out there and do the work. You've just heard from Kelly, one of the most badass agents on the planet, picking up momentum every single day, every single week, every single month, expanding, has done in 3 years what most agents can't do in a lifetime. Pretty epic, amazing stuff. Make sure that you go, take 1, 2, 3 things that you've heard here, take action on it and implement it. Don't let this be another one of those interviews, another one of those courses that you've listened to that you listen to it, you get some good ideas, and you just go let them sit in a drawer somewhere, right? So implement something that you heard here. Take action. Massive levels of action always equal massive results. So thank you for listening, Kelly. Thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute honor to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys go dominate. Peace out. Go tear it up.